more death battle with the latest episode, Bowser vs. Eggman. So this is an episode that was heavily anticipated and heavily requested for like a long time, which is understandable. It is one of the biggest rivalries in gaming, Mario and Sonic, but we're just flipping it to the villains instead. And they already did Mario vs. Sonic. Hell, they did it twice. And both these characters have been on Death Battle before. Bowser's episode was in Season 3, and Eggman's was in Season 1. So it's been a while. And also one thing that has been requested in a while is an army fight, which means Bowser has a lot more toys to play with this time. So what did I think of the episode? Overall, I liked it. It's clearly an episode that a lot of people really wanted to do and had a lot of fun making. Like, people really liked Mario and Sonic and they wanted to show all the cool stuff that they enjoy by those in this episode, and that was very easy to see. This is not an episode that I was super invested in because I'm not the biggest Mario fan. I don't really play many Mario games. Like, I think I just played Galaxy when I had a Wii. And similarly, I haven't played a Sonic game in forever. Like, I played a couple on the PS2, like Heroes and Shadow, and again on the Wii, I think I had 7 Rings, or whatever it was called, Secret of the 7 Rings. And outside that, not really anything. Sonic to me is a source of cool songs that kinda suck, but in a way that's awesome. But yeah, I did like this one. I don't agree with the general hyperbole recency bias that a lot of Death Battle people online go for, that this is peak best episode they've ever made. You've said that about like the last 15 episodes they've made. And yes, they've been on a track of really good episodes recently. You can't just keep saying that this is the best, this is peak every fucking time. It's getting a little bored, but this was good. And I guess if you're really a big Mario or Sonic fan, probably more on the side of Mario though, you're gonna really like this one. So what did they go into? Let's start with Bowser. So a big thing with this episode, and it's gonna bleed into talking about Eggman as well, because this is an army fight, there is so much for both of these characters to go into, which is a part of why the argument is a lot of fun, and I guess I'll get back to that later. But let's just go in for Bowser specifically. He has a lot just on himself, and we saw that last time when he fought Ganondorf, which I wasn't a fan of that one, for mostly just because I don't like if an episode, when it comes out, can be recreated in Smash Brothers. It's not that interesting. But yeah, I do really like that this one really took a lot from the entire Mario franchise, even like spin-offs and stuff, because we get a lot of like RPG stuff from like Bowser's Inside Story and Dream Team, I think it was. I can't remember. I never really played any of those Mario RPGs, and also Mario Party stuff. And also, you know, we have the notable members of his army. Before the fight came out, they advertised like major players in their army, and for Bowser, it was Kamek and Bowser Jr. It was interesting to go over like the entire cast of things. Bowser has most of the stuff at his disposal, but stuff like, you know, even like King Boo, and just seeing all of like the various things he gets, very interesting. There's one question actually now I just thought of, is that like if this wasn't an army fight and it was just Bowser against really anyone, would he be a live Fury Bowser? Because that requires Bowser Jr.'s pin. They probably would, but it's just a thought. One of the running jokes they definitely have for this one is that he uses dark magic. I think that's fine. It's used enough that you notice it as like a recurring joke, but not enough that it gets too annoying. As I said earlier, one of the only games I really played was Mario Galaxy, so I do appreciate that some of the bigger elements of the argument come from that one, because then I recognize it. From this and bleeds into the Eggman one is that because there was a lot of passion put into this episode, the edits are very, very, very over the top. They're really cool, and there's a lot of them. Notably that there is like at the end of the analysis, they have a game over section, which, remember that phrase, because it will come back later, showing the villain, like, defeating the hero. It's neat. I do like that. Okay, on the Eggman. So Eggman stuff, I know the backstory just because you play really any Sonic game, you get the idea of like the especially anyone with Shadow in it. You hear about Maria and Eggman and the Robotnik family. It's definitely weird how much that the 2000s really did a number on Sonic, huh? There was a lot. They showed a lot of stuff. They actually didn't. It took a while to get to his army in the rundown. Mostly because a lot of the things he has is just like his very like. It's more important is like his mechs and stuff. Even though in the fight he only uses a couple. There's a lot of fun references to that one fan dub. Some funny moments in that fan dub. I was more invested in his generals, let's say. So similar to Bowser, they showed off characters that were like notable members of his army, and for Eggman, those were Metal Sonic and Siege. The one they do bring up here that they didn't show there is Infinite, and that's probably because Infinite is not the most important member of his army, but he does have one of his fun MacGuffins being the Phantom Ruby. Metal Sonic is a big player. I mean, hell, in the last fight he was in, technically Metal Sonic won that fight. Eggman didn't win it, Metal Sonic did, because Metal Sonic got infected with the Roboanza virus. The other big one is Siege, who is very recent addition because she's from Sonic Forces, a game that I didn't play. I heard very mixed things about in terms of like gameplay, because you're just kind of running around a big Unreal area with loop-de-loops in it, but there's some really cool fucking songs in it. People seem to enjoy Siege as a character. It's like one of the like new Sonic characters that people really latched onto. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff, especially because I didn't play a ton of Sonic games, so like, and even then, the ones I did play didn't really beat them. So there's a lot of like end-game stuff that I'm very unfamiliar with. But this also had a similar end screen, but this time they made a fun recreation of the intro to Shadow the Hedgehog. But instead of Shadow standing behind Sonic, it's Eggman, Metal, and Siege. And also says Game Over, which again, get back to very shortly. We're on to the fight. But first, let's talk about the song, why not? So the track for this fight is Game Over, as I've been saying, by Brandon Yates, featuring Victor Borba and Tyler Anderson. Now, Brandon Yates, is a very recurring composer for Death Battle, has been doing it since like season 2. I can't remember what I think the first one he did was, no, the first one he did, I can't remember, I think it might have been, he did one for Goku vs. Superman 2. I don't know if there was any before that, actually. No, he did a song for Wolverine vs. Raiden. Yeah, but one of his early ones was actually for Bowser vs. Ganon, so the previous Bowser fight. The other two names there, Victor Borba has been on Death Battle before. He also provided vocals for Dragon Dance, the song for Gogeta vs. Vegito, and is also known for being the vocalist for the song Bury the Light, which was the battle theme for Virgil in Devil May Cry 5. A very notable song, and also pretty cool. And Tyler Anderson wrote the lyrics for this fight and was also the backing vocals. He hasn't done anything for Death Battle, however, he has featured in many Brandon Yates commission tracks, including Nobody's Perfect for Cell vs. Gion, The Way of the Blade for Jetstream Sam vs. Sam Gideon, Invasive Species for Invader Zim vs. Earthworm Jim, Unforgiving Justice for Punisher vs. Red Hood, Legendary Fury for Tai Lung vs. Ryuga, and Wrongfully for Goblin Slayer vs. Bel Crannel. But yeah, this song is pretty cool. I don't know how much I like it fitting for this. I remember when they showed the trailer, they used a song which I thought was going to be this song. I really didn't like the vibe it was going for. Just because Bowser and Eggman is such a kind of silly fight, and it was like really serious. Turns out it wasn't. It was a different song. It was a song called The Madness by Beyond Broken. But they did appreciate it being used for the trailer, which was nice. I mean, according to the wiki here, the song uses a bunch of like themes. Like apparently uses Fury Bowser's theme and his boss theme from Bowser's Inside Story, as well as boss themes from Sonic Lost World and Sonic Forces. I didn't really hear a lot of them, mostly because I'm kind of unfamiliar with those songs, but I definitely get probably the idea that it's meant to fit along the lines of like Sonic boss rock themes, especially for like Sonic Forces. I do like the song. I do think it's just kind of tonally opposed to some of the sillier things that's occurring. Also, the name Game Over, it works because they're bosses, and like, they defeat the hero, game over. It's a little generic though. It's not the worst, but it is very generic. If being called that, you can't tell that it's for Bowser vs. Eggman. I still like it though. I feel like it kind of opposes what I expected from the battle track. For character voices though, Eggman is voiced by Arthur Romeo, who does a really good job. I think he's very good as Eggman. This is his only Death Battle appearance, and he does have a fairly limited behind the voice actors, but he is Thrasher Damned in Street Fighter 6. That's a pretty big name. And he's also that really ugly police guard in JoJo Part 6. Bowser is voiced by Zach Watkins, who has very limited voice acting credits, as he only has one other one, being Aquaman in SpongeBob vs. Aquaman. However, Zach is also an animator, and has been animating for Death Battle since Season 2. And if I was to list all the things he's animated, that would just be most of the episodes that have come out in the last decade. But the first episode he did was Batman vs. Captain America. And we also did Goomba vs. Koopa 2 for DBX, which we saw a clip of during Bowser's Rundown. They aren't the only voices we hear during the fight, but the others seem to be voice clips from games. So we do hear Infinite, Metal Sonic, and Siege, but they do seem to be voice clips from things like Sonic Forces, Sonic Frontiers, and Sonic Heroes. Night of the fight. I think the inciting incident for the fight is really fun. I like a lot of the visual gags we got there, especially that, like, it's Paper Peach, so her falling over as a cardboard cutout, still works. It's called Operation Catfish, which was really fun. Apparently that was the name of the wedding subplot from the Sonic 2 movie. That's another fun little reference. One issue that I have here, and it's probably just due to time, as we see in the storyboards, there's a little sequence at the start after, the armies show up and they have their little face-off, where the Koopalings, fight a bunch of the robots. That got cut, probably for time or they just couldn't make it or something. But seeing that in the thing, I do think that definitely should have been there, because the jump from, armies running each other and then we just cut back to Bowser doing a drop kick. It feels a little too sudden to jump from, army clash to, heads of the army clashing as well. I think that would have been a good buffer, but we take what we have. And everything they do looks very good, because this is very well 2D animated, very nice looking. One of the first big things that happen is Infinite shows up, and Infinite gets taken out really fast, which I guess is just par for the course with Infinite. He's just the resident jobber of Sonic villains, but he has a cool theme and he has a cool voice, so I like Infinite. He kind of came in that time where I'm like, oh, this sucks, but in a way that's cool. Like most Sonic things. Yeah, he got by King Boo, it was fun. A lot of back and forth. But immediately after that, Metal Sonic shows up, and Metal Sonic really carries his half of the army. Like his half of that half of the battle is really carried on the shoulders of Metal Sonic. Though we did get one of the, I think, most creative uses of goofy nonsense when the Phantom Ruby is stolen from Metal Sonic using fucking Mario Party logic. Very fun. I really liked it. Even used the same sound effect. He then turns into his Neo form, which I believe is from the IDW comics, which does look very cool. And then we get the main lineup of Eggman forces. You get him in the big fucking mech. There's Siege and Metal. It was a very fun image. Then we get Fury Bowser. Looks really cool, especially because it's not 2D like the rest of them. It kind of makes him look alien, I guess, from everything else, because he's a 3D model, or at least at sometimes he's a 3D model and sometimes he's not. But they're kind of trying to, as far as I know, they're blending the way, and it works really well. I think it looks great. Yeah, the clash is fun. I really like it. It's cool. This definitely has one of the parts where it's the tone clash, I guess, feels off. And I do like that they did that. They did this, but it definitely feels weird, where Siege gets a bunch of robots and throws them at Bowser, and then Kamek shows up and creates a bunch of pipes to block it. I think that's fun and works. But it plays the Mario sound effect for the pipes, so it just is like, here's all this cool war stuff happening, and then goofy sound effects are occurring. But then Metal shows up, fucking knocks Kamek out of the fucking fight, and then also seemingly kills Bowser Jr., which leads to a very cool beam that fucking annihilates Metal Sonic. Like that a lot. Then we get the part with the Death Egg. I really loved the visual of it being the moon and then moving away from the moon. That was really good. That was all good. Then we get the more or less the end of the fight, because he gets turned into a skeleton and Eggman gets away from the explosion. But then it's revealed that Bowser Jr. is still alive, and Bowser can survive as a skeleton. It did take me like 2 or 3 times watching it to kind of realize that like what happens at this point, just because I feel like the way it's presented is a little off and it requires like a second go through. Where like he shoots his like thing and it turns it to something that can't be used, and then he just shoots him again, it misses. But it turns out it didn't miss, it hit the Death Egg, turned it into a big question block. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention that first time. All the animations Eggman has when he's trying to run away from being sucked into Bowser are really fun. I like the jetpack, I love the arms back running. Then he gets punched into the question block and it rains gold. Very cool. Though, I do agree with the comment that I saw, and hopefully that's not just me being very influenceable. I just saw something that I decided to agree with. That the fight has a really good, like, escalation, but then right at the end it kind of drops back down. And everything's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and ends with, like, giant lasers into a huge kaiju. And then it just kind of ends with Eggman kind of being sucked in and punched. Like, this is compared to Omni-Man versus Bardock. I think that fight has a really, really good sense of escalation. Like, you start on at the base, they do the MK1 clash, have a little fight, then Bardock turns into the Ape, they have a clash there, he gets the upper hand, Omni-Man rips the tail off, he brings him up into space, he has the upper hand, Bardock goes Super Saiyan, he gets the upper hand for a bit, but then Omni-Man like deflects an attack, they have a pretty even clash, and then the final attack. I think the escalation for that is really good because it keeps going up until the final hit, where it climaxes. Whereas it feels like the climax for this fight is slightly before the final hit, so that final hit doesn't hit as hard. But yeah, Bowser wins. Personally, I would have preferred if Eggman won, just because I liked it better. So this has one of the longest results sections that we have had in a while, just because, given the nature of it being a army fight, there is just so many variables. Compared to the last episode where there actually wasn't too many variables, it was one variable in Joker vs. Giorno, which was Gold Experience Requiem. It was complicated, but just because of that. How do you interpret that? And depending on that interpretation, what do you interpret about Joker? And can he get around it? Whereas for here, it's like, there's not really much up for interpretation. It's just, what do they have? What can it do? And the issue is, they have a lot. And they can do a lot. So it's really just you have to dig through everything. And because there's a lot, one fun thing that happens in this one is that there are alternate scenarios to show how certain things would interact with each other. And I think also just, as from what I saw, it's like they wanted to show some things that weren't there when they were making the animation. Because they were making this like a year or two ago. So certain things weren't out or readily available then, like Mario Wonder or Eggman Super Saiyan form. So they have little extras, like how does Bowser beat the Metal Virus? Or how Castle Bowser can beat Light Eggman? Or how Dream Bowser can beat the Time Eater? Or how Bowser can beat Nightmare Eggman? All very cool and look super sick. And honestly, I probably would have preferred some of those to be the final attack, probably Time Eater one. But it makes sense that they essentially just picked like what is the best one to show for the fight, or like makes sense in the context that we put it in, which is Fury Bowser makes the most sense, and also everyone wants to see that one probably, and Death Egg makes the most sense. Clearly a lot of effort and passion went into this one. I enjoyed it. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as everyone else did, but I do think it's very good. Yeah, I forgot to do that last time, so here's the tier list. Joker Giorno goes 1, and now adding this, let's say 2. Just because I like Persona better. And we also got what is the final episode of this year, and the final episode that they were working on before they got shut down, which was Among Us versus Fall Guys. This is stupid. So before this, people were like trying to figure out which episode could be the fourth one, because depending on things that were said in podcasts and such. And one thing people kind of seemed to trip over themselves on was, it's got to be one from the Tournament of Champions, which to me was a weird idea, because if we were going to get one from the Tournament of Champions, it would be the episode that was voted upon, right? And that did get shot in the foot, but then people got confused. Seemingly, the one they should have been looking at was the ballot, and not the Tournament of Champions. They did say, though, that this is one that they were convinced is worth doing. Probably by doing a cast and just seeing it. An issue is definitely that this feels a couple of years too late to capitalize on the hype of these things. It could still be fun. I also just don't understand how these fight. Because what feats do they have? Is there like stuff outside of just the game they exist in? Because in the game they exist in, the standard Among Us's don't really do much. They just kind of do like tasks around their spaceship, and then the imposter can murder them with various things. So there's at least like murder things happening. Fall Guys are just beans that get smacked with big foam hammers. So I don't understand what they can do. Is there like a comic or something? I guess we'll find out in the next couple weeks. I'll see you for when that comes out.